Welcome. This is the Late Late Show with BT, where views with security and law are being provided to you, the public. This show, we're going to read from Self, March 2016, Vogue, September 2015, Teen Vogue, February 2016, Marie Claire, September 2016, Family Circle, October 2015, and Parents, August 2016. So again, that's Parents, August 2016, Family Circle, October 2015, Marie Claire, September 2016, Teen Vogue, February 2016, Vogue, September 2015, and Self, March 2016. So we're going to begin talking about the case that we're still in the midst of. I mentioned that this show uh, we be up against a lot of sex offenders, and primarily sex offenders who have committed crimes against minors. Um, so we're up against one of those sex offenders, and I was very disappointed that my lawyer well, let's just say I was disappointed by the lawyer. And so I decided to submit a motion pro se. And I just did that on Wednesday of last week. I took a picture and everything because it was like this is my first motion, So I took a picture because it was a moment for me. So waiting to hear something back from that. Put in a lot of information, that have really got here since starting this show, to include the case regarding Laura Ann Evans, also known as Lori Alexia, and she had also started using a different name that's similar, not the exact name, but it's something like Piera Pin, something like that, a PP, which occurred in 2011. So we included some information regarding that with it. So we're hoping for at least a small victory. Of course, with regards to the show's purpose, we want a huge victory. So that's an update on that. Another update is I may have mentioned, I may have not, that I had got information from two agencies, local agencies, and I was going to go with one, but I decided to go with the other one. So I took some pictures today that I'm hoping they like. The photography, I'm hoping the photography is acceptable. It's acceptable to me, but I was telling the photographer, because the agency supports a different photographer. So they suggest that when you're getting pictures to go to this photographer. So it's like they already have like something in mind when it comes to pictures. And even though I know that she doesn't know who we are or what we're about, and that is enough for the picture to be acceptable to me. But you're up against a person that was put there for a particular reason while we're going through what we're going through, to have what we have and what we built and what's been preserved for us appropriately, especially when you're up against, especially for instance, when we got a case, when one person got a case, it's like everybody got that case, so it's like, especially when we got a case right now. So you have to keep all of that in mind. And a little bad news. Haven't heard anything from our interests, quote unquote, people. The only thing is when something's listed out there or put out there, you don't know if that's still updated information if the information isn't updated. So going by the information that was posted, I sent correspondence, regarding our interest in a particular individual. Requested to have a response by the end of August or the end of summer. Use that because it was the end of summer, which was a couple of days ago. And haven't heard anything back. Sent out information to the publicist and who's listed as the publicist and who's listed as the manager. I forgot what kind of manager, but some type of manager. And haven't heard anything back. So that's a bit of bad news and a disappointment. And prior to that, from doing this show, we learned that our interest has a nonprofit that helped out victims of Hurricane Katrina. And so this was before Hurricane Harvey. Since we know of an apartment complex that could use some changing, especially in management, and it's a little bit more complex than that, contacted them with that focus in mind, but with also our, this interest as our interest. Haven't heard anything back from that. So I'm thinking, there's Hurricane Harvey that's now. So I was wondering if, since they sent out help for Hurricane Katrina victims, are they doing the same thing for Hurricane Harvey? And I guess I could look them up to see if anything's listed on the website. But, it's back to priorities. When you have people working for you who call themselves working for you, but they don't have a clue as to what priorities are your priorities, you question how they could be actually working for you. So, I remember including in the letter that, I hope you are people or a person that does right, by, by our interests. But I find that to be a challenge, having people who don't actually have your interest, but yet they're still assuming a role as if they have your interests in mind. With that being said, this song, what I've learned from doing this show and just getting like the contributions of public artists, the call and response method. Sometimes you got beef and they, it's like this beef, like when there was Tupac and Biggie, they were doing that beef, and Tupac did a song that was like from the same sampling of one of the songs that, Junior Mafia, was it Lil Kim or Bad Boy Entertainment had put out, that's how it was perceived, as it was beefing, it was drama. It was, it was built on that. So when I heard this song, I was like, you know, I was like, this person, you know, I'm just gonna do it, and then maybe talk about it afterwards. But you know, that scripture that's always when it says love your enemies, you know, you have to get an enemy. You know, how you just gonna love just because you think this person hating on you or whatever, this person dissing on you or this person got beef with something you said? How you just gonna call someone an enemy when you don't really know, when you don't know, or if you don't know? But anyway, when I heard this, you know, I was like, wait a minute, hold up, you know, wait a minute. So I started singing. I don't know the words by heart, but you know, like, wait a minute, she really doesn't know what she's saying right now, for real. So anyway, here it goes. With no explanation whatsoever, but maybe you'll get it, maybe you won't. Maybe she'll get it, maybe she won't. But here it is. Say, little bitch, you can for me if you want to. These expensive, these is rare bottoms, these is bloody shoes. Hit the store, I can get them both. I don't wanna choose, and I'll quick cut a nigga off, so don't get comfortable. Look, I don't dance now, I make money moves. Say I don't gotta dance, I make money moves. If I see you and I don't speak, that means I don't fuck with you. I'm a boss, you a worker, bitch. I make good moves. And she say she gonna do what to who? Let's find out and see. You know where I'm at, you know where I be. You in the club, just a party. I'm there, I get paid a fee. I be in and out the bank so much, I know that time to me. Honestly, don't get about who your enemy. Drop your mixtapes in 6 months with before. Yeah, it's hard as me. I don't bother with these hoes. Don't let these hoes bother me. They see pictures, they see ghosts. Bitch, I'm who they trying to be. Look, I'ma just chill with some babe. I'ma just chill with your boo. I'ma just feel on your babe. My pussy feel like a lake. He wanna swim with his face. I'm like, okay, I'll let him get what he want. He by me. And there's no whip. When I go fast as a horse, I got the trunk in the front. I'm the hottest in the street. No, you probably heard of me. Got a bag and fix my teeth. Hope you won't know it ain't true. And I pay my mama bills. I ain't got no time to chill. Think these hoes be mad at me. They follow. Wanna feel a little bitch. You can't fuck for me if you want to. These exclusive, these is red bottoms, these is bloody shoes. Hit the store, I can get them both. I don't wanna choose, and I'm quick. Cut a nigga off, so don't get comfortable. Look, I don't dance now, I make money moves. Say I don't gotta dance, I make money moves. If I see you and I don't speak, that means I don't fuck with you. I'm the boss, you won't work a bitch. I make money moves. If you want pussy, you get hot. You a groupie, you a up. Don't you come around my way. You can hang around my block. And I just check my account, turns out I'm rich, I'm rich, I'm rich. I put my hand up on my hip, I bet you dippy, dipsy, dip. I get the money and go. This shit is hot like a stove. Obviously good as gold. Fill the bitch in a row. I just roll in the rows. I just came up in the rave. I need to fill up the tank. No, I need to fill up the safe. I need to let all these hoes know that none of that niggas is safe. I go to dinner and steak. Only the rich can relate. I should live in the peace. Now it's the crib with the gate. Rolling at Charles like nothing for space. Had to let these bitches know. Just in case these hoes forgot. I just run and check the mail, another check I'm on the spot. Say, little bitch, you can for me if you want to. These expensive, these is red bottoms, these is bloody shoes. At the store, I can get them both. I don't want to choose, and I'll quit cutting the nigga off, so don't get comfortable. Look, I don't dance now, I make money moves. Say I don't gotta dance, I make money moves. If I see you now speak, that means I don't fuck with you. I'm a boss, you a worker, bitch. I make bloody moves. So I think I just felt like I wanted to start the show with the enemy. Now for Tory Burch. The designer who launches a double-link motif for her namesake collection has a love affair with all things French in a one-and-done approach to bungee jumping. Most agonizing career decision, leaving LVMH to become a stay-at-home mom for 4 years. Ended up being the best decision I ever made. How I made my first dollar, I worked at the Benetton store in the King of Prussia Mall. Book that left a lasting impression on me, 100 Years of Solitude. Song I'd want played at my funeral, Amazing Grace by the Neville Brothers. But does it have to be at my funeral? If I could live in a foreign country, it would be France, but the West Indies is a close second. My perfect day would end with a clam bake on the beach with family and friends. If I could compete in an Olympic sport, I'd like it to be tennis. Growing up, I wanted to be Chris Evert. Beauty workbook. Lisa Hohen. Turns out he was the best she ever had in business. He was right. The bathtub had feet, my favorite. The wallpaper was almost not creepy, and the big mirror with the heavy golden frame hung directly in front of the king-size bed that was actually two twins strapped together. And I felt equally beat up in my love life with a long distance in the midst of law school boyfriend who declared himself too busy for a commitment while simultaneously dating me and another woman. In the box that asked what I was looking for, I wrote negotiable. The first date I set up through the site was a bus. The guy was rude and had hair that added 3 inches to his miniature frame. Number 3 took me to a speakeasy, which was wonderful until he ruined it by telling me the disgusting things he would do to me in the nearby hotel where he assumed I'd meet him shortly. If I couldn't find someone I liked to lavish me with cash or gifts, maybe I could use the site to meet these moguls, tap their brains, and learn to build my own business so I could eventually treat myself. Sugar Baby Laura would have you believe that whipping out a checkbook is how David helps me through professional ups and downs, and that I eagerly take his money. But I've never let him invest in my company. Instead, he's been there to field questions, celebrate my accomplishments, and share my successes and failures each step of the way. I think the premise of meeting on the site made us both want to wait to get it right, to make sure we genuinely had a connection before being distracted by extravagant evenings together in what turned out to be fantastic sex. We're not exclusive, but there's no jealousy or resentment. We both get to maintain our independence with the knowledge that someone has our back and that a great date in warm body is a text away. And I'm not ashamed to be on the receiving end of that. Lisa Hohen. Kimberly Cutter. We're also here to look at some of the extraordinary efforts now being made within the fashion industry, both to curb its role in climate change, which is significant, and to transform the business in a way that no one could have imagined 30 years ago. I don't think any of us realized the impact the business had on people and on the climate. The fashion business, which brings in $2.5 trillion per year, is responsible for 85% of all textiles that end up in landfills, about 21 billion tons each year, and for 10% of global carbon emissions, which are the primary source of human-caused global warming. The fashion industry is also the second largest user of water. Research by the Danish Fashion Institute shows, currently contributing 20% of the industrial water waste on the planet. She thought, there has to be. At 1,500 square miles, the Juneau ice field, which comprises about 140 glaciers, including the Mendenhall Glacier, could disappear by the end of the next century if current warming trends continue. Spend a night talking to people in Juneau, and you'll hear stories of starving polar bears up in the Northwest Territories and native villages crashing into the Beaufort Sea. You don't want to be depressed because then they become paralyzed, says John Neary, director of the Mendenhall Glacier Visitor Center. But it's important for all of us to look at what our current lifestyles are costing us and to realize that we can do things differently. It means the glacier behind the town, which is a pretty apt name for the pale blue beast of ice that spreads behind Juneau like a spilled milkshake, 13 miles long and 100 feet thick. You can hike up to it, helicopter over it, kayak across Mendenhall Lake toward it, or just gaze at it from behind the window at the visitor center. But I'd argue that the most breathtaking way to see the glacier is from underneath, inside the ice caves. Hey, what do you think, Fashion Week or the glacier? Asked our photographer, National Geographic. When we climb out at last, blinking and gasping in the sunlight. Later, and I start talking about how excited we are to bring our families back here. We've taken about 3 hours south of Juneau into a remote wilderness area called the Tracy Arm Fjord to see a dramatic piece of ice known as the Sawyer Glacier. Icebergs ranging from XS to XXL dot the bay, along with dozens of harbor seals lolling belly up in the sun as two black bears and a brown one lumbered along the rocky shoreline. At the pale, milky blue feet of the massive glacier, our captain, Steve Weber, is explaining the process of glacier calving, or chunks breaking off, increasingly common with all the warm weather, when he suddenly yells, "Hang on!" and starts backing up the boat fast. In 10 years, we've gone from not having very good answers about how to power this country without coal to being at a place where clean energy is the cheap solution, as well as the one that's good for the planet. Not nearly as expensive as it would be to lose all of our coastal cities to flooding. Why fix up an old energy system that's putting us all in so much danger when we could invest in a clean system and a clean new one that will improve everyone's life for the better? There's a lot we can do on an individual level. Drive less, fly less, eat less meat, spend our money on clothes that last, but the biggest changes have to come at the level of government spending. Like a lot of great answers in life, it came to her in the form of yet another question. Can we prove the business case for sustainability in fashion? She went to visit a few people in the business and said, this costs about $1 and change. By the time you fly all the bits around the world, if we could reduce that sum by just 10%, remembering that you're selling about 30 million shirts a year, then all of a sudden you've got profitability and sustainability. In fact, the dress shirt turned out to be such a perfect example of packaging absurdity and financial opportunity that started carrying one around in her bag as a visual aid in her presentations. Currently, the Fair Fashion Center works with 30 CEOs and 211 brands. We're talking luxury conglomerates and major retail and distribution companies that are together responsible for $2 billion in business. I wish I could tell you who they are, but so far, the big fashion brands prefer that their work remain private, except one. Chairman and CEO of Kering, whose brands include Saint Laurent, Gucci, and Balenciaga. There is an increased focus on companies being accountable for the environmental and social impacts associated with their business activities and their responsibility to contribute to mitigating climate change. It has been our business imperative for several years to become a more sustainable company, but we will only be successful through collaboration with other stakeholders in the industry to improve standards and practices. Similarly, when buying clothes online, you'd soon be able to click a button that says, please reduce my packaging to avoid waste. This month has Virgo resolving an issue. It's go time. Aries imagining the possibilities, think big. And Gemini ignoring the haters. Your opinion is the only one that counts. Eric Francis Coppolino. Resist temptations to be judgmental and say less rather than more. You're likely to be called upon to help resolve a conflict, and being perceived as generally neutral will go far. When you make peace with specific confines you know exist, you will also begin to see your true potential. Take tangible action every day. One step and then another will dependably take you to the next stage. Mindfulness is the only way to learn from your fears, which point out places where you lack trust, be it in your own strength or in the universe to take care of you. Belief is best used as a tool rather than as a block against something else that might be true. Yes, that officially makes you unusual, which is a beautiful thing. You are figuring out how not to be informed by your insecurities, which seem so certain, strange since they're describing uncertainty. You're poised for a unique breakthrough in the coming months, and comparisons to others won't get you anywhere. You have the natural intelligence to be shrewder with money. So, what kind of stands out in this one is that you are figuring out how not to be informed by your insecurities, which seem so certain. So, he's saying that your insecurities seem to be certain, but how could your insecurities be certain when they're describing uncertainty? So I think that makes a very good point. And to be clear, this isn't Sex in the City moved to the suburbs. Jennifer Goldstein. The secret to enlightenment and brighter skin may be one and the same. My face used to be the least of my worries. There, he instructed me to sit on a cushion in lotus position, that's cross-legged for non-yogis, and concentrate on breathing in and out, letting my thoughts come and go without engaging them. Using green tea to help fade spots is a novel. Many brightening serums rely on the powerhouse ingredient, but what makes this formula special is its ability to alleviate redness as well as brown pigmentation. The discoloration that comes with age isn't just from brown melanin, which everyone has been talking about. The next big thing: beauty, fashion, tech, culture, work, wellness. Email nextbigthing@hearst.com. Award-winning beauty duo. Even Katy Perry, the pop star queen of cartoon colors, has segued back to brunette. Jennifer Goldstein heads across the pond to experience bespoke beauty the British way. The UK may be reeling from the Brexit vote, but for the time being, the London look remains as eclectic and international as the city's inhabitants. You could visit this metropolis 100 times and have 100 unique experiences, something I learned firsthand while exploring the local beauty scene on a recent trip. Seated at a high bar, enjoying a cup of Earl Grey, I sniffed my way through the brand's 33 scents from iconic lime, basil, and mandarin, introduced in 1991, to the newest addition, basil and neroli, which smells like an English herb garden bathed in orange blossom scented sunshine. Seriously. All the products here are designed to be layered. Blend 2 perfumes to make your own, or wash with 1 scented shower gel, smooth on another body cream, and finish with a 3rd cologne. Not a beauty editor perk. The customization culminated with a visit to the flagship's one-of-a-kind artisan studio, where I tricked out my perfume bottle with a colored cap and had it hand engraved with my name. After my manicure, I visited Urban Skin founder, who gave me a facial with acupressure, $160, focusing on the points above the inner corners of my eyes, just beneath the brows. Gross, but true. As she worked, I developed some serious post-nasal drip. Several from the Body Shop, including a rejuvenating rose for the eyes and a hydrating honey on the forehead and cheeks. 10 minutes later, she rinsed and handed me a mirror for the big reveal. Beauty, vanity files. How to achieve Skin Zen plus bath time gets an upgrade. What's new for hair? This season's It Shade. 25 and 30%, between 20 and 25%. 21% of women versus 16% of men say gender discrimination is to blame for the pay gap. 21% of women feel their gender was to blame for not getting a raise. 7% of men feel their gender was to blame for not getting a raise. 27% of women versus 25% of men haven't asked for a raise because they think asking wouldn't change anything. Bend the rules. So when it comes to bending the rules versus male and female and employment, you know, for me, it's not really based on gender. You know, if this person's purpose is this, it's that person's purpose, whether it's a male or whether it's a female. And that's kind of how we, you know, like everyone has a purpose, you know, and it goes by that, not by the gender. Balmain's creative director and perennial man about town opens up to MC creative director about his childhood, the women who inspire him, and what it's really like to be BFFs with the Kardashians. Garnier's micellar cleansing water makes navigating beauty trends easier by removing makeup gently. Jennifer Fleming at Face Made Makeup Artist. The Bedeck Bag. Break Trail. Doubling the bag. Doubling. It's a long journey to become the one. Doubling. Kimberly Cutter, contributing editor. Getting to experience the beauty of Alaska with a group of people who weren't scared to talk about climate change was incredible, she says. So it's not that I'm scared to talk about climate change, but I think it's one of those things. You know, it just seems like there's a lot of focuses. I'm not gonna say that they're like going in circle focuses, but so I remember the article that I just shared, and she included fashion, saying that fashion is the second largest company with that user of water, and that they have a part in the misuse or, you know, irresponsibility with regards to global warming. And glaciers. And I happened to catch the movie Ice Age. I forgot which version it was. But it seemed like it's one of those topics, you know how some things you like not right now. You know, like it's not something that you're supposed to go in right now, or to tackle right now, or to clear up right now. You know, like there's things that have to be in place before you approach that topic. So then, you know, like, okay, so you inform the community of activists with that as a statement. So then that community of activists are tasked with reducing the time gap, you know, the amount of time that from when it was introduced as a topic of discussion versus the amount of time when it can be addressed. So to reduce that time, and what variables are preventing it from being addressed? What variables are attempting to block their progress with regards to change or to block their progress when it comes to being heard or being responded to. So that's kind of where we're at with climate change. So it's not about being afraid to talk about it. It's just there are certain variables that it's like, it's not saying that it's not an emergency or it doesn't have a level of priority, but it's not something that we're supposed to. There are other priorities that are of higher level priority than that at this particular time. The big reveal. And the only thing with that is that when that is the case, when there are higher priorities, but it's like this is still important, then, you know, whatever it seems like you have to prepare and shield yourself from whatever happens because you couldn't address it at that particular time because it didn't have the timing that it needed. It wasn't a right now situation. So, you know, you have to protect everyone that's going through whatever that situation is, you know, and keep them prayerful and keep them believing that everything that's preventing you from being able to address it right then will be resolved, or the block will be removed, or will get, you know, the justice or whatever justice will be served. So beauty products worth $405, not $401, not $402.75, $405. Place pork shoulder, onion, ginger, and garlic in bottom of slow cooker. Toss beef with salt and allspice. Melissa Mefford. Cut parchment to fit in the bottom of two 8-inch round baking pans. Cut parchment to fit in the bottom of two 8-inch round baking pans. Lentil bowl. Eat this, beat that. Michael Terrell. Think beyond the tried and true with 70 twists on a family favorite. In a large serving bowl, toss pasta with tomato sauce and scallops. In a large bowl, gently fold together beef mixture, 1/2 cup of the mozzarella and ricotta. Spread 1 cup of the marinara in bottom of prepared dish. 2 bunches of broccolini trimmed and cut into 1-inch pieces. In a large skillet, heat oil over medium-high heat, add garlic, and cook 1 minute until lightly brown. 4 fully cooked bratwursts, about 12 ounce total, chopped into large dice. 1 pan of bow tie pasta. In a large non-stick skillet, heat oil over medium-high heat, add onions and cook 4 minutes, stirring occasionally. Add bratwurst and cook 4 minutes. 1 pan of bucatini pasta. In a large serving bowl, toss pasta with butter. Remove beef to a cutting board and shred with 2 forks. 8-ounce burrata cheese. Place burrata on top of pasta and cut into large pieces with 2 knives. So, question: is mastectomy better than lumpectomy? So, let's just look up both and see what a mastectomy is. So a mastectomy is a surgical operation to remove a breast. And a lumpectomy is a surgical operation in which a lump is removed from the breast, typically when cancer is present but has not spread. So I would say that if mastectomy is the removal of the entire breast, and the lumpectomy is removal of the lump from the breast, which means that you will still have your breast intact, that the lumpectomy will be better than the mastectomy. How do I figure out the best treatment for my type of cancer? Man, how do you figure out the best treatment for your type of cancer? Well, I guess I would first suggest you maybe start note taking, making notes about how you perceive your cancer. What does your cancer entails? What makes up your cancer? What does it feel like? What does it look like? What is your type of cancer to you? So once you have those descriptions down, once you have those feelings down, once you have those emotions down, then if these emotions are associated with your cancer, what type of treatment do you feel, can you think of ways that you would want to be treated to make you feel better or to not feel that way? What type of things can you think of that you could do that can make a different design of it? If you think that this is how you're describing what your cancer looks like, can you think of anything that in a way that you would want it to be described differently? How would you design it differently? If this is what your cancer is made up of, these are your points that it's made up of. Is there a different design to that makeup? When you just stop thinking about cancer as a disease and you just look at those things that your type of cancer is made of, how it makes you feel. Eat this, beat that. Stacy Colino. That's because in recent years, the numbers that define normal when it comes to blood sugar, bone mass, and blood pressure have shifted. Because these conditions are usually silent, meaning no red flag symptoms, it's easy to be unaware or ignore the quiet peril they pose. It's actually the beginning of a danger zone. Prehypertension is defined as systolic pressure, the top number between 120 and 139 mmHg, or diastolic pressure, the bottom number between 80 and 89 mmHg. If you're using canned veggies, beware that there may be a sneaky sodium. Fresh or frozen are better choices in this respect. So rinse those veggies before eating or heating them. Having a culinary attitude of gratitude also helps. Experts say you're more likely to be a diet success if you focus more on what you can have, like grilled salmon, a healthy water salad, instead of what you should avoid, surprising salt traps like frozen pizza. A 2015 study from India found that doing 12 weeks of yoga helped people with prehypertension reduce their blood pressure significantly and return to the normal zone. Also called impaired fasting glucose, IFG, this condition occurs when glucose levels fall between 100 and 125 mg/dl, higher than normal but not elevated enough to be diabetes, 126 or above. Preliminary research from the University of Wisconsin-Madison suggests prediabetes may have negative effects on the brain, impairing its ability to respond to stress. A serving of oatmeal with a tablespoon of walnuts and raisins and a teaspoon of cinnamon. The best form of exercise is the one you do regularly, and by regularly we mean 150 minutes a week. But some experts say a lower dose of high-intensity interval training, or HIIT, brief bursts of vigorous exercise followed by bouts of lower intensity, gives you the best bang for your exercise buck. A precursor to osteoporosis, this condition is a warning that your bones are becoming brittle. Osteopenia is defined as a T-score on a bone density test, dual energy X-ray absorptiometry, that's between -1 and -2.5. Osteoporosis is a score lower than -2.5. An estimated 34.5 million adults 50 years old and up in the U.S. suffer from low bone mass, and most of them are women. But that doesn't mean is benign. As for beverages, the jury is out on whether the phosphorus in cola drinks contributes to bone loss, but the carbonation is considered harmless. Eat this, beat that. So I've taken a different approach with fitness, and it hasn't helped when it comes to the numbers and the weight because I've gained weight in numbers. I haven't been exercising, however, I'm required to exercise once a week and that's about 30 minutes. But I'm not going to say it's necessarily a healthy approach, but it is, so it's more like a behavioral approach to food, to wellness and fitness. And it can include what's perceived as fast food, so that's kind of where I'm at with it, just staying with the behavioral fitness and health from that perspective when it comes to what I decide to have, whether it's from what's perceived to be a fast food restaurant or franchise to a grocery store. Tracy Stewart. A dog crouching low to the ground with his tail between his legs is begging, "Get me out of here." We all know the really "you should drop everything and throw me that ball" look, known as the playboy position. So it's something about that, putting the ball in a dog's mouth and throwing a ball for him to catch. Like, I've never been for that. When it comes to play and dogs playing and being playful, I guess it comes down to your household, and what you can give the dog to play that's specific to your household. Then there's, putting the dog in the community, having a safe place where your dog can go and be amongst other dogs, and a place where you have gotten involved with their curriculum and their care methods. Turn laundry time into turbo time because they share. Your child's typical behavior, like kissing, sharing drinks and cosmetics, and living in close quarters, can lead to increased risk of meningococcal disease. Which is probably why, when kids go off to college and stay on campus, living in close quarters, they require for them to get vaccinated and immunized. Don't let tattered and torn fool you. These baby blues are anything but sloppy. So I've definitely learned, I never really even thought about it, because when I was in high school, they had that brand out that was called, I think, Use, and but the only difference is they would have Use on it, but they were like, ripped up pants, and they sell them now like that, ripped up. Some people still cut theirs, but sometimes you can see it differently. The ones that are mass produced versus the ones that people do themselves. Not saying that it's better, it's just sometimes you can tell the difference. Balance the simplicity of the soft heel with a dramatic sweater vest and snakeskin slides. That was one thing I like, snakeskin type sandals. It's something about, having a snakeskin shoe. 2015 Best Beauty Buys. The best way to start the day moments. Bewitched. 2015 Best Beauty Buys. Win All-Star Beauty Products. Last Bite. Eat this, beat that. Eat this, beat that. Recipes. 50 Beauty Bargains. Virginia Smith. Whether you're tanning by the shore, toasting with aperitifs a la piscine, is guaranteed to make a splash. Beauty flash. It only takes a few quality beauty products to complete a new fall look. Mark Reducci. She's equally versatile when it comes to her look, having lately chopped her flaxen mane into a bob that better frames her patrician features, which they are further complemented by pythony green glasses from Bulgari. Work 2 seems to be a series of adaptations from her breakout role as a raven-haired Jordan Baker and envisioning of The Great Gatsby to a turn in Guy Ritchie's new update of The Man from UNCLE to bristly version of Macbeth, which premiered at Cannes earlier this year. I find it so luxurious to read a book that has nothing to do with what I'm working on, she says. Well, that sounds pretty promising. But I found everything to be relative. Even looking at movies now, when I look at a movie, it's all relative to something that's going on. It may not be intentionally brought that way, but it's like, I'm just saying with getting a book. I've just accepted that as the reality now. Jonathan Van Meter. For those of us who lived through that time in the mid-90s when hip-hop was still dangerously real enough to get you killed at a Vibe magazine party or at an intersection in Las Vegas, but was also just mainstream enough to be featured in Sprite ads, there was something incredibly surreal about watching the BET Awards in the gym. Right after middle-aged Puff Daddy performed in an old school red tracksuit, Lil' Kim, Mace, and Faith Evans for a tribute to Bad Boy Records, the label he started 20 years ago. The cast of Empire came out to perform songs for their hit TV show, one seemingly drawn from biographies of Jay-Z, Suge Knight, and yes, Puffy. So the last is the only one who reportedly threatened to sue Fox for stealing my life story. As everyone knows by now, Empire centers on Luscious Lion, his ex-wife, Cookie, and their 3 children, Andre, Jamal, and Hakeem, as they work and sing and backstab to control their billion-dollar empire, a record label that was built on drug money earned back when Lucius and Cookie were newlywed nobodies in the city of brotherly love. As everyone also knows, the show grabbed the world by the throat in January and refused to let go. By the time the season finale aired in March, with 17 million people glued to their seats, it became the first show in the history of the Nielsen ratings to gather a big audience with each episode. But the show also rattles the chandeliers because it isn't afraid to let rip with all of those dark, delicious tropes of Greek tragedy in 80s nighttime soaps. Power, greed, betrayal, lust, hate, shame, all of it poured into the fresh container of urban Black upward mobility. I was the founding editor of Vibe back then, a magazine started by Quincy Jones and Time Incorporated to capture a paradigm shift. All those fly b-boys and girls who jumped on the luxury fashion boom and put their own spin on it, moving beyond the fat gold chain and baseball cap toward a more louche, aspirational glamour defined by flamboyant fur, leather, logos, and loud prints. As personified by Cookie, who struts around in a thigh-high python stiletto boots, ferocious animal prints, and a fedora strategically dipped below one eye, the show has demonstrated that ghetto fabulousness refuses to become stale or cliche. When the director, Lee Daniels, first pitched the idea for Empire to Fox, he told the executives that he wanted to define music, art, and fashion from an African-American perspective. Because I have been to Oprah's house, and I have been to Puffy's, he tells me, and I have been to my Aunt Dot's on 46 and Walnut in the projects of Philadelphia, and there's a common thread. You can go down to the hood and still find gangsters, girls who ain't got 2 nickels, but the bag is fierce, and they will have the meat. You didn't talk to Black people like that. I was like, I don't like being trapped in a little box. She was also put off by the script. The 2 men met years ago while filming Hustle and Flow, the film about a Memphis pimp with aspirations to become a rapper that earned Howard an Oscar nomination. Henson will have to wait another 3 years to get recognized by the Academy when she was nominated for Best Supporting Actress for her performance as Queenie in The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. All one need do is note that Dope was the toast of Sundance, or that television series The Get Down is coming next year, or that Lin-Manuel Miranda's Hamilton is electrifying on Broadway. And yet we are in a long, difficult season of wrestling with the pain of racism, from reckoning with widespread police brutality to coming to grips with the oppressive symbolism of the Confederate flag. The decision by Lee Daniels to tackle this issue head on by giving homophobic Lucius a gay son Jamal, seems to me to be the bravest thing I've seen TV do in a long while. I was raised behind the homophobic curtain. It's deep and it's happy and it's sad and it's strange. Growing up, you're bred to feel alone. And the minute you start listening to the establishment and the minute you start buying into what they believe is when you lose. So you have to be willing to risk it all the time. Now for Donna Karan. In her upcoming memoir, design icon Donna Karan reflects on her early days in fashion, creating a groundbreaking label, and embarking on her latest chapter. The first thing I learned when I took the job as chief assistant in 1971 was that she was the boss. Nothing was too small for her to have an opinion about, from the positioning of darts and buttons on the blouse to the coffee mugs we use in the showroom. Because I, too, became a stickler for fit. Clothes can and should be beautiful, but they only work if you want to wear them in your everyday life. The truth was, hadn't been traveling that summer. She had breast cancer. I was going to be a mother, the thing I wanted more than anything. I fully intended to be a stay-at-home mom. Of all 10 pounds had no sooner popped out than our investor called my hospital room with that deep German voice of his. Donna, they need you to come back to work. I checked with my doctor who forbade me to go back to work so soon. How could that be? She was going to be fine. This is terrible, but you need to finish the collection. I was 25 years old, had just given birth, and was dead. I had to deliver the pre-fall collection, then face the big one, fall, set to show in May 1974. I didn't channel in any way while designing that collection. I was still too numb for that. But I did call upon every lesson she taught me. I designed for flexibility, creating mix and match sportswear a woman could wear multiple ways. During the presentation in our showroom, I frantically fussed over each model before I let her walk out from behind the curtain, and I held my breath until I sounded the last girl. Blinded by the lights and the emotion, I trembled and tried not to fall over. Birth, death, death, birth. They were protecting their brand. I understood. Stunned, I stumbled back to the design room. Donna, I'm just not seeing the bad side. Put the business equation out of your mind. We started right here, he said, hitting the table. For me, the best part about being busy is that I don't have time to think. First, I had to secure the right people because you're only as good as the team behind you. The obvious thing was to put my name on the label, but it didn't seem like it enough. That sounded bigger than me. Whatever the piece, it had to be the only one of that kind you need. Each item had to be flexible and ready to shift in attitude and purpose, depending on what you teamed it with. It had to have a mix of masculine and feminine because there's nothing sexier than a woman in a man's jacket, coat, shirt, or sweater. And it had to accentuate the positive and delete the negative because that gives you confidence. My 7 easy pieces: the bodysuit, the wrap and tie skirt, the pants, the tailored jacket, the suede wrap jacket, the camel coat, the gold sequined skirt. Easy. But let's be clear, designing them was anything but. But those 7 were the core essentials, the chic uniform. Just days before our first show in May 1985, we moved into our new headquarters, which had been designed by the architect. All the big names were headquartered there. Oscar, Ralph, Bill Blass. 550's 14th floor happened to be available, so we grabbed it. To be continued, Karen leaves her label and changes up her future. I need to close one chapter to begin the next, nurturing Urban Zen, the company, and the foundation, as well as my philanthropic pursuits. For more than 30 years, I signed my fashion show releases. To be continued. From My Journey by Donna Karan. The ties that bind. Belle of the ball, fit to be tied. Christopher Kane. In less than a decade, the edgy beauty of London-based Jonathan Anderson and Christopher Kane, as modeled here by, respectively, for a new generation. The 30-year-old Anderson, meanwhile, is creative director of both the LVMH-owned Spanish house of Loewe and his own namesake label, has crafted an arsenal of surreal and perverse touches into a provocative vision. Fashion has had to become more agile, he says. You have to break the rules. Robert Sullivan. These turned out to be some of his earliest photos of New York and Philadelphia, but also Mexico and a list of southern cities in between. Many feature sleepy storefronts, a barber's, a dress shop that look as though the world was already passing them by. They're kind of Walker Evans meets ActJet, pre-Robert Frank, says guest curator for Irving Penn Beyond Beauty, which opens at the Smithsonian next month before traveling on to Dallas, Cambridge, Nashville, and Wichita. Mark Verducci. Small wonder that boxing is his favorite sport or that a tattoo on his bicep reads in Gothic typeface, "There is nothing worse in life than being ordinary." His fellow pro who in 2001 became the only man ever to win Wimbledon as a wild card is equally loyal. I'm just lucky Berna happens to be from Portland. LR. After learning the role, the 18-year-old immersed herself in charged script loosely based on Walter Isaacson's biography. John Powers. By the time of her Star Wars audition, she'd done a couple of short films, an indie horror picture, and some TV episodes. Lucasfilm president found her to be a genuinely warm, wonderful girl to hang out with. I knew she had something we were looking for. Adds, it's nice to be on this journey with someone else, for sure. It makes it seem less insane. And will they be returning to that galaxy far, far away? With her singular beauty vision, the makeup artist is bringing a cool new attitude to Chanel. Mark Verducci. A master of ladylike updates to the boho wardrobe of many a London girl, among them, has now conjured 12 ethically and sustainably produced looks without compromising his aesthetic. Robert Sullivan. At other moments, of course, he's chatting. Get him going on Jurassic World or really any sci-fi film, and you'll have trouble getting him to stop. At a casting, dressed in jeans and a plain gray sweatshirt, his arms folded, his head tilted, his eyes paying close attention. He seems to be considering not only his practical needs, but the model's feelings as well. It's the way I used to think back when I was applying. Even when I was applying to colleges, he tells me. Even when things have been tough, Joseph has managed to keep an even keel, says COO of Barney's New York. And though things have been tough, try starting a fashion line during a recession sometime. 32 has patiently built his company while steering clear of the temptations for a quick expansion or a race to accessorize. Fashion's financial powers have taken notice, as evidenced by the French luxury goods powerhouse decision to back him in 2013. I was convinced Joseph had the potential to be one of the most influential designers of his generation, CEO tells me. Our two big pillars are that I'm half French and half American, he says. The woman is very comfortable with her body. The proof is in fans like, along with Nicole Kidman, who praised the pleating in the white crepe dress with satin inset she wore at Cannes earlier this year as feminine, beautiful, sexy, and wonderful to wear. According to who now serves on the board of her son's company, Joseph's childhood was a book-filled one, dominated with the adventures of a sailor adventurer who starred in Italian graphic novels and The Girl Who Loved Wild Horses, based on a Plains Indian girl. Transnational influences, to be sure. The bag is a good example. He is sitting in his spare, well-lit office talking about how he found himself one afternoon in the middle of last year on a website selling bull ropes. And he's getting a tiny bit agitated, remembering the anxiety he felt when calling the man in New Mexico who was selling them to place his order. I really didn't sound like a cowboy, he says. I actually said I wanted to buy them for a friend. At the fall show, ripped on a cavalcade of society icons, and the rest in pieces that managed to be at once rock solid and playful, shearling colored jackets and long skirts with just as long slits, Prince of Wales check coats followed by more leather, white and black lace with high patrician collars, a gold shimmered red dress with plunging neckline, and Tibetan braided velvet de Varay meaning from the Latin to devour. I should know. I'm married to a ceramist raised on a wheel in the Pacific Northwest. We now live in Brooklyn, the borough where things are made, and I eat and drink only from the delicate porcelain wares that she meticulously decorates with abstract etchings and drawings. Part of the reason she and others can do that is Instagram, which uses both to troll for ideas and to market the wares that result while still marveling at her medium's ancientness. Began to move a lot more of her work when started featuring it in one of his stores, but now she can't feel her kin fast enough. It's a conundrum, she says. Certain ceramist pieces, meanwhile, are beginning to inch closer and closer to the price of fine art. Most materials don't have the breadth, says, whose chandelier-esque assemblages will show at the Pippi Holdsworth Gallery in London next month. When I stopped into the studio space, shares with my wife, to chat, both women rhapsodized about their love of clay, which, by the way, is the stuff of the earth. Robert Sullivan. Again, with Robert Sullivan. Super PACs are fundraising entities with no limits on what they can spend to elect or defeat candidates. They require constant fundraising and typically make politicians beholden to their biggest donors. At the moment, Hillary Clinton's super PAC fundraising is far behind at more than $24 million. But with both individuals and corporations now free to donate millions at a time, before the landmark 2010 Supreme Court ruling the Citizens United case, donations were capped at $5,000. Those numbers are about to escalate tremendously once the campaign season begins in earnest. Most recently, she and her team have been working with their 70,000 supporters to build local and regional support. Meanwhile, they're mining their data to both find the voters who care and engineer ways to fire them up. After a degree in religion and women's studies from the University of Florida, she entered Harvard Divinity School, hoping to become a religion professor. By the time she graduated, Gray was steeped in critical theory, but unprepared to make the rank. By 2016, we need 70 new allies for reform, Gray says. John Putner, the executive director of the finance reform nonprofit Take Back Our Republic, who also engineered the defeat of Eric Cantor in last year's midterms, is one of many Republicans with an eye on what Gray is doing with Mayday and how she's doing it. There's a very impressive, very strategic organization, and they're going to be very successful. It's not hard to spot the synergy that Gray sees between the two missions. Both are about re-engaging people in the reality of politics. Both require the sort of hypercharged skills and speed of execution that she has in abundance. When I checked in with Gray again in July, she was, after almost continuous stints of shuttle advocacy between New York and Washington, about to take a smartphone-free trip with her boyfriend to the wilds of Puerto Rico, completely off the grid, she said, before dedicating herself wholly to the 2016 election fight. Whenever anybody says, oh, our democracy doesn't work, I just want to say, I'm sorry, it has to work, and I'm going to be here until it does. So we've just gone through 3 topics with Robert Sullivan. The first one was about fashion. and Joseph, and talked about, gave some little insight from people who feel as though they know Joseph. Then we went to ceramics with Robert Sullivan. And finally ended with super PACs. So that was a nice range with Robert Sullivan. Mario Testino. I wanted to capture a strong, sexy Beyonce, and I wanted to have her input. I wanted her to be a part of the whole process. We like girls who talk back. Mark Pizzucci. The question is no longer Taylor Swift's famous friends who make guest appearances at her concerts. The question is how many will be there. At one recent performance at MetLife Stadium, for instance, Nina Dunham strutted alongside Gigi Hadid, Haley Steinfeld, and Lily Aldridge for the high priestess of pop, summoned the U.S. women's national soccer team to her runway of a stage. The newly victorious athletes brandishing an American flag taller than most of Swift's fans. The biggest surprise appearance of the night, however, was who goes by his stage name, The Weeknd. Watching Swift's legions chant the innuendo laden lyrics of Can't Feel My Face, the first single off his latest LP, the much anticipated Beauty Behind the Madness made it clear that the mainstream momentum behind the mysterious Ontario-born R&B virtuoso is reaching a fever pitch. Both Beauty Behind the Madness, which features production by the Swede, largely responsible for Miss Swift's own metamorphosis from country star to global powerhouse, The Weeknd is set to become the poster child of post-modern R&B and another symbol of its integration to the music machine. Brilliant beauty backstage. Backstage beauty. Lord & Taylor, The Bohemian Beat. The Bellevue collection is adding two more fashion must-haves, Zara and Uniqlo. The Bellevue collection. Beauty Queen, Talking Back. Jessica Siensen Henriquez. Janelle wants to be the first female African-American president, she says, but I want to be a scientist first. This phase, which may enter between the ages of 8 and 12, is known as camouflaging, a term coined by Dr. It's the practice of tweaking how one looks and acts in order to blend in with peers. I don't wear a waist trainer because it's comfortable. I wear it because other girls in my group do, because society tells me that my 5'2", size 8 body is supposed to look like a Kardashian's. Image shifts start small, trading in glasses for contacts, wearing bras before there is any need for them, flirting with boys they don't even like, mimicking makeup styles from popular classmates or Photoshop faces. Bridget 20, a sophomore at the University of Texas at Austin, admits, I'm a pretty opinionated person. But there have been about 1 million instances when I wanted to raise my hand in class and say something or answer a question, but I didn't out of fear of being seen as too eager. I don't want to be thought of as being annoying. 17, a high school junior in Chicago, was assigned to a group project with 2 guys in her honors chemistry class. Unfortunately, are not alone in their sounds or their behavior. Many women avoid taking ownership of their words. They discredit themselves before their sentence is finished, she says. They don't realize that body language can make a girl seem less capable. In a 2006 survey by the nonprofit Girls Incorporated, 74% of female respondents in grades 3 through 12 said that girls are under a lot of pressure to please everyone. The same survey found that 55% believe that girls are expected to speak softly and not cause trouble. Phrases like be careful or don't get dirty are often said to girls by their parents or teachers, but not as often to their brothers or male classmates. Basically, Tia is giving girls a megaphone, and the voices of their nearly 10,000 members are all over social media. Today, I am beautiful. Today, I am me. You can't hand girls empowerment, but you can provide an encouraging and supportive environment for them to be themselves in a group where they feel, no matter how different they are, that they belong, she contends. Note the tone you use, focus on your gestures and your posture, know what confidence looks like on you, and take baby steps to reintroduce that girl to the world. Beauty note. Achieve bare-faced beauty effortlessly. No touch-ups necessary with a blurring primer. Tuesday Batson. At Tuesday Batson, illustrator and designer. Beauty tip. Finish it off with a jewel-encrusted headband or barrette. Beauty tip. So I want to stop there, and I'm having a Trump administration moment. I guess it's more of a Donald Trump moment and not a Trump administration moment. And this is my beauty tip. Find Donald Trump and Ivanka and let me just get my dates right. Let me just get my dates right real quick. Wow, they got married. Can you believe this? They married the same year I was born. Wow. The same year I was born, Donald married Ivana. So find Donald Trump and Ivana Trump. This is my beauty tip. Find Ivana Trump and Donald Trump, still married since 1977. Imagine seeing him on the town, oh, didn't know nothing. He's staring me down, so I figured that he told her who I am. It don't matter either way or what they do or say, 'cause ain't nothing changed. He's standing with her, but his soul was calling out my name. In our mind, I'll always be his lady. In our mind, I'll always be his girl. Saw his mama just the other day, said he'd been through a spell. Got a bad breakup, thinks he's on his way up, it's hard to tell. Said I think it does some good if you call him every now and then. You see, he's been through some things, and I'm thinking he could really use a friend. And I might, I'll always be his lady. And I might, he'll always be my man. Only time can tell if I'm his lady. But in my mind, I'll always be. They say if you love something, you've got to let it go. And if it comes back, then it means so much more. But if it never does, at least you will know that it was something you had to go through to grow. And I'll always be his lady. And our man, he'll always be my man. Always time. But in our mind, always feel this way about you, always be a lady in the heart, in our mind, in our mind, in our mind, baby, you should know you're in my mind, in our mind, yeah. A little beauty tip. Let's be honest. Time for it all with Jessica Alba. I work toward finding balance in my life every day, but some days are better than others. I boost my energy by staying hydrated. I'll keep a bottle of water with lemon in hand, or I have a green juice with an extra shot of ginger and lemon to keep me moving. As an entrepreneur, it's hard not to bring parts of the office home. Bath time and bed time are important for my husband and I to share with our kids. So that was Jessica Alba. Now for Andrea Todd. The weather forecast was foreboding. Plummeting temperatures and blizzard conditions were due by the end of the weekend. She left behind her husband, Charlie Farhudi, and began her journey to the top of the Northeast's highest peak. What would have inspired someone to venture into the mountains alone as a storm was brewing? The same impulse that drives many of us to do things that seem crazy only if something goes wrong. Say running a marathon on a sweltering day or completing an epic 100-mile bike ride. Route so that by dusk she'd be headed down the west side of the range to meet her husband in his warm car at the Mount Washington Cog Railway. She graduated summa cum laude from DePaul University in Chicago and was admitted into the highly selective Master of Financial Engineering program at the University of California at Berkeley's Haas School of Business. There, she helped develop a derivatives pricing application for the iPhone, and her team won third place at the Rotman International Trading Competition held annually in Toronto. They beat out students from every other U.S. school. Executive director of the program and mentor says proudly. Still talks about how she would apologize to judo opponents she had beaten, and says that insisted that she take care of other students first before her when placing them in jobs. During her career, worked in the banking industry, moving from an internship in equity research to financial analysis at JP Morgan, where she met her husband, to credit trading associate at BNP Paribas in Manhattan. She had with her a cell phone, a satellite phone, a GPS locator, and even a personal locator beacon. Turn back now if the weather is bad. The difficulty of hiking the northern presidentials is without a doubt the terrain and extreme weather, explains a New Hampshire resident whose informational blog trailed to summary details her climbing successes and setbacks. She explains that by the time saw that posted sign, she would have completed the longest ascent of the trek, arguably the most challenging part, the 4-mile, 4,000-foot scale up toward Mount Madison. And that was sobering that someone who climbed at our level had gotten in trouble like that. Despite these conditions, after scaling Mount Adams, she seemed to be functioning and thinking clearly. She tried her best to retrace her steps, to get back to the safety of the timberline. Approximately 3:30 p.m. that Sunday, activated the emergency personal locator beacon her husband insisted she carry. 90 minutes later at 5 p.m., a second ping with a different location, this time north of the ridge and below the tree line, registered. Only the best of the best had a chance of saving her, he says. You have to be careful with victims in that state. If you move them too quickly, a blast of frozen blood to the heart can kill them. It makes more sense to believe that was the case. Brings up how devices like the beacon carried can be problematic. Climbers take bigger risks, assuming that a device like this will save their lives, he says. The best can be extremely confident, prone to underestimating the terrain and overestimating their abilities, not turning back, not stopping despite the cold, the conditions, the exhaustion. Finds herself settling on what may be the simplest explanation. What I think is this. The wind shifted and she wasn't expecting it. The storm rolled in sooner and the conditions on the range were much worse than they've been in a while. I tell climbers the mountain will always be there. Those who knew and loved most continue to struggle with her death, including her husband, who declined to be interviewed for this story. The best climbers can be prone to underestimating the terrain and overestimating their abilities, not turning back, not stopping, despite the cold, the conditions, the exhaustion. And that was Andrea Todd. Now for the expert, Andy Mitchell. Most of the book is healthy recipes, particularly meals I love, like fish and chips or burgers made in more wholesome ways. But then there are more indulgent recipes to share. Sometimes you want a special meal with with people you love. So I thought, can I get through today and do my best? Treat each meal as a chance to start fresh. Beauty Buzz, South's Beauty Department shares this month's best finds. Celebrity trainer Nicole Winhofer is all about the beats. Makes sense. She trained Madonna. Her New York City-based class, the NW method, uses toning moves, leg lifts, pulses, kicks with dance, all to songs with a strong beat. These fun picks will help you keep pace, whether you're dancing or jogging. Nicole Kakovo here. 3 and 4-year-olds are also beginning to notice the reasoning behind others' actions, which is a critical skill for understanding the perspective of another person, real or imaginary. Dr. Taylor's research found that not only do kids with made-up pals have as many flesh and blood friends as other kids, but they also tend to be more outgoing. However, by the time she has developed the skills necessary to create an imaginary companion, she has also acquired the ability to know that the friend is pretend. Get a chance to get bored before shifting their imagination to high gear and creating a friend out of thin air. So turn off the TV, computer, and tablet. Your child may or may not share that she's feeling anxious herself, but even if she doesn't, you can help ease her worries indirectly by saying it's okay to be nervous about meeting new people, and that her imaginary companion will feel happy if she has someone to play with. Remind your kid that rules are rules, and imaginary friends need to abide by them too. Wow. It reminded me of this movie. Was it Beetlejuice? Gosh, I don't know if it was Beetlejuice or not, but the girl had her imaginary friend, and she was given pills that she was supposed to take for the imaginary friend to go away. So anytime it got to the point, this is how it was presented. It got to the point that she was threatening the imaginary friend that he was going to go away when she take the pill. So she was trying to make it was as if she was trying to make the imaginary friend fearful of his life with the pill. So I don't recall if she stopped taking the pills and the imaginary friend just went away. So I guess, maybe what they're trying to say, which is different. This article is encouraging it, but just encourage your child to have, and you know, that it's okay, but there still are rules for imaginary friends, as opposed to, I don't know, the movie saying that when it gets to the point that your child, where it becomes a threatening situation with that imaginary friend, where your child starts threatening that imaginary friend, or feels threatened by the imaginary friend, that's where it's time for medication. I don't know if that's what they were showing in it. I can't remember the name of it, that movie. I want to say it was, I don't know if it was Beetlejuice or not. But, you know, this is a show with security and law. So another thing that came to mind was, because it was saying that when you compare those with imaginary companions with those with not, that they are just as outgoing as those who don't have imaginary friends. And then, you know, those pretend friends, you know, so it could be an opportunity, you know, from this is again our point of view, that you could, you know, instill keeping those pretenders separate from those who actually got your back. You know, it may not be that they're necessarily friends, but they may be friendly from a distance. You know, they may be friendly, you know, close by, or friendly near to you. But keeping those the ones that pretend that don't really have your interests at heart, or don't really have your safety at heart, at a distance. You know, and you know, you can instill, or in, you know, with the imaginary friend situation, that separation. You know, because this is pretend, you know, and you know, when it comes to, you know, what is that flesh and blood friends, you know, that you already have experience with this imaginary friend, you know, you know that, you know, this, you have something to go by when it comes to reality. You know, this was imagined. You know, if you see some similar characteristics, you know, that maybe that, you know, it's not what it seems with this particular person. But yeah, I don't even know if that will work, because you don't want to instill judgment in your child, you know. But it is hinting on a security opportunity there. Virginia Soul Smith. Your baby's breathing effort, heart rate, muscle tone, reflexes, and skin color will be checked, and each given a score of 0, 1, or 2. Below 7 can be the result of a difficult birth and may mean your baby needs supplemental oxygen or other help in the first few hours. Many newborns are born with a mild form of jaundice because their immature liver has a hard time processing a byproduct of red blood cells called bilirubin. Jaundice usually resolves in a week or two, but if the bilirubin level gets too high, it can cause deafness, cerebral palsy, or other forms of brain damage. So even if your baby's color looks perfectly normal, most hospital nurseries will check her bilirubin count through a blood test or by using a light meter. Special lights alter the bilirubin so it's easier for your baby's liver to clear it out. Frequent breastfeeding or formula supplementation can also help babies pass the bilirubin in their stool. In rare cases, a blood transfusion may be needed. Commonly known as the heel prick test because your baby's nurse will stick a tiny needle in his heel to collect blood. It screens for inherited health conditions as well as endocrine issues, sickle cell anemia, and other blood disorders. Congenital heart defect, CCHD, accounts for 24% of infant deaths due to birth defects because babies seem healthy at first. If the oxygen level is low or the test shows different readings of your baby's hand and foot, it could mean that her heart is having trouble pumping enough oxygenated blood around her body. Care for your baby and mean it in your heart, your spirit, and your soul. Jamie Paxton. Ever thought about moving to another country, making your home on a boat, or literally buying the farm? Yes, I've thought about moving to another country. I've thought about living on a boat and buying a farm. But not really buying a farm, but having a garden. Much difference. Having a garden and buying a farm. But as I slog through my daily grind with 2 kids, the bold existence I once imagined seems far, far away. I had no idea how to realize these desires until I talked to 3 intrepid families who are blazing their own way through the world. With 3 children, including twins, 4 and under, the mayor's mornings are super busy. Diapers needing changing, breakfast has to be made, chores need to be done, and everyone's still a little sleepy. Chattering gulls, a blue-green ocean, white sandy beaches, the smell of salt, and the warm sun are the backdrop for the family's everyday life. That's exactly how Brittany and Scott imagined it would be when they got married in 2010. Both grew up around boats, and they met during a sailing race on Lake Michigan. The couple returned to Chicago 18 months later to have their first child, Isla, but then embarked on another ambitious expedition covering 5,000 nautical miles to Grenada, while Isla was still an infant. They moved back to the Windy City after finding out Brittany was pregnant with twins, then spent a year adjusting to life with 3 young children. They returned to their 44-foot sail motorboat in the British Virgin Islands, where they never have to sail more than a few hours to a safe harbor. They live aboard their boat in a bustling marina and still enjoy many of the benefits of the cruising lifestyle they sought. To minimize expenses and energy consumption, Brittany and Scott charge their batteries with solar power and do laundry by hand. The kids spend the bulk of their waking hours outside watching seabirds, snuggling and reading with mom and dad, playing on the beach, and learning to swim and paddleboard. The family celebrated the twins' birthday in a way that encapsulates the easygoing, fun-loving life they created. We invited other cruiser friends to join us on the beach, says Brittany. This is an incredible way for our kids to grow up, says Brittany. And as our girls get older and more adapted to boat life, it will get easier. Or more accurately, as they sail by them. Not only do we know where our food comes from and how it was raised, but it also tastes so much better than the store-bought stuff did, says Jason. The kids even visited a blood center to watch their dad make a donation and got to see the lab where the blood is processed. By the time the melodic chant is over, Laura knows it's time to get her kids ready for the day. The pay was double what he was making. Dubai is a largely tax-free country, and if you live there full-time, your first $98,000 is not subject to U.S. taxes. Living expenses were paid for by the company, and family time was valued. Being a mom who had worked as a house cleaner and attended school full-time to being an at-home mom trying to figure out the electrical plugs and how to beat the 120-degree Fahrenheit heat. Would the language barrier be a problem? They've also had less trouble living under the Islam-based legal system, known as Sharia law, than they had anticipated. So the song that we did, which I didn't know that this was going to be in here, but the song that we started with first, I was like, oh, we're going to do a song from an enemy, was the video was shot in Dubai, United Arab Emirates. So it looks like I've never been there personally, but it looks like it's a lot of sand, which for me, wider sand is a lot of heat. Kim Ortmeyer in Valdosta, Georgia. On the way to the beach, my son asked me from the back seat, Mom, when are we going to get to our destiny? Timber. Parents' 10 best water parks. So this past summer, which was this month, I believe, was the first time I actually went I got the chance to experience Kings Dominion's water park. So I'm not a swimmer, but I just recently learned how to float too. So as I started walking around, I started looking at some of the slides. I was like, oh, there's some things, you know, they keep the water park stocked with lifeguards. So, you know, there's some that you're like, even this ride has a lifeguard that I feel as though some slides that I feel as though I can get on. But, you know, even not knowing how to swim, because like when you come out, you're not coming out in a big pool of water. It's just like, you know, it's like really, really slim amount of water. But I still didn't get the chance to do that. But I still enjoyed myself there. And, you know, I tried their fish, you know, which was interesting. And, you know, got the chance to maybe do like one or two or three, maybe it was just two um, attractions in the water park. But, you know, Kings Dominion is definitely, I would say, a place to visit if you are in the Virginia area. So I thought this was interesting, and I saw another one, but this one is one of the dogs named Max, and who's a character in The Secret Life of Pets, advertising for a product. I just thought that was quite interesting, you know, where it's not a real dog, it's not, you know, it's an animated dog getting compensated, you know, for advertising. I thought that was quite interesting though. You know, does it go to the cast? Does it go to the creator? You know, does it go to that, you know, just really quite interesting. David L. Hill, MD. First, the best data show that compared with children without walkers, those who use them are slower to sit, crawl, and walk on their own. Some newer walkers are designed to limit the risk of falls because they have brakes, so they can be used in a stationary position and are too wide to fit through doorways, making it hard to access the stairs. But their wheels can still provide children access to swimming pools, bathtubs, poisonous medications, and cords attached to hot irons. To be safe, stick with a stationary activity center. The Brett diet is best for kids with diarrhea. I don't know who came up with these 4 items, but the idea was that they're bland and low in fiber, fat, and protein and would not irritate the intestine. The Brett diet, however, provides limited nutritional value, making it harder to fight off infection and gain strength. And there's no evidence to suggest that it's better than anything else at resolving diarrhea, although the pectin in bananas may be helpful. Adding cereal to your baby's bottle will help him sleep. So if you feed him cereal before bedtime, he'll be full longer and he won't wake up. I hear parents blame teething for fevers, diarrhea, and coughs all the time. I still remember riding way in the back of my mom's 1974 Datsun hatchback, looking at the moon through the rear windows defroster wires. Of course, using a child car restraint isn't enough. It has to be used properly. Yes, I know that your child generally prefers to see where you're going, and I know that his legs seem uncomfortably scrunched back there, but trust me, he'll adapt. Colds are definitely more common during the fall and winter, but the science is sparse on the reasons. Long before the discovery of viruses, Benjamin Franklin doubted the conventional wisdom of catching a chill. Sporadic studies involving shivering mice and volunteers soaking their feet in cold water have suggested roles that low temperatures can play in virus transmissions, but the consensus remains just as muddy as it was in Franklin's time. That said, attitudes about vaccines finally seem to be changing in the face of growing outbreaks of vaccine-preventable diseases, including measles and pertussis, throughout the nation. Parents who do have vaccine concerns often tell me that they want to do more of their own research before they make a decision. Bag the chips. 76% of parents say that their kids prefer print books over ebooks, found a survey by Book Trust. So I'm reading my first ebook, one of my classes. I'm using an ebook, and it's okay. But the teacher, the instructor, can be so annoying. You're like, you put your phone away, because I use my phone. You know, I got a phone where I can access it through my phone. Like, you over there, put your phone away. Like, that is so annoying. When, it just seems annoying and not necessary because, it's in the rules that, they don't discourage it. Like, it is possible. It just doesn't it seems very nonsensical to me. It's just like, hey, you, put your phone away. It's just simple. But anyway, that was my first use of an ebook. I downloaded several ebooks, being a member of a company, but I haven't gotten a chance to really go in them. Don't know if I will, but we'll see. If you're familiar with Prime, I was a Prime member, um, because I like all these different options, you know, and you think about actors have a lot of different avenues, that there's Netflix, Amazon has its own Prime, you don't have to be Prime, but Amazon has its own, you can access movies and, concerts and, so there's a lot of different options out there where you can access entertainment or media without paying for cable. Um, So, however, I still support the idea of print books as well. Makeup with tired eyes with a bottle of the bubbly. Michael Rich, MD, MPH. When my kids ages 5 and 8 have iPad privileges, they beg me to download a new app, which they never use more than a few times. Lisa Merrim, Coffee Chief. She was fascinated by the ducks swimming in the pond, but when she went to take a closer look, she toppled into the water. Fortunately, she had been taking swimming lessons and managed to float on her back until I waded in to get her. Sopping wet, we took a taxi back to where we were staying and had a nice hot bath. So yeah, I think that's a great thing now, because at first I was like, I couldn't even float. Like, how do you do that? But I was able to get to the point. I was actually I didn't take lessons to learn how to float. I was actually taking lessons to learn how to swim, but it didn't completely work out like that. But in that process, I learned how to float. I still probably don't know how to float face first down, but on the back, I'm like, I can certainly float and stay afloat. You're the boss, raising the bar. Our out of network spotlight today is LOEWE. So hopefully we can complete the book, which this is the third part of World War Z. So I just have to figure out where we stopped last time. So I may have to repeat some things. So I mentioned that the book is a little different from the movie. And the reason being, with the movie, you're able to put it in context with what the actors that were selected to be in the cast brings to the story and brings to the person that first presented the story, whom is Max Brooks. So again, I may have to reiterate some things. Fight or flight, and those dogs are bred to fight. Can't blame the dogs for it. They stand their ground, bare their teeth, and let out this low growl that said, back the fuck off. Now, just because they can control themselves didn't mean that we could control them. Basic training was pretty much like the standard pre-war program. It wasn't uncommon for a recruit to be badly injured, perhaps even killed. Yeah, we had to do it too, right alongside the dogs, right from day one of basic, through 10 more weeks of AIT. You know, we were the first ones to use Zach in our field training, before the infantry, before the special forces, even before the Zoomies at Willow Creek. K's on early missions used to be fast, run and bark, then jam it for the kill zone. During the Denver push, there was a tall building where a couple hundred refugees had accidentally been locked in with the infection and were now completely reanimated. Before our guys could storm the entrance, one of the kids had his own idea to run up to the roof of a building across the street and start barking to draw Zach up onto the higher floors. But the primary and most common mission of any K team was scouting, both SC and LRP. Not only could they sniff Zach out miles before us, but the sounds they made always told you exactly what to expect. You could tell everything you needed to know by the pitch of a growl and the frequency of the bark. The arch of the cage's back, the raising of Daniel was all you needed to see. I guess from a technical side, it was pretty amazing. Real-time hard intel like we used to have before the war. The brass loved it. I can't tell you how stressful that was, to be standing in some computer-filled, air-conditioned room, safe, comfortable, and totally helpless. Teams had to be trained on toes from the beginning. I heard a lot of those from the intel pew, standing behind them as they watched the damn monitor, mentally stroking it to the wonders of their new data orientation asset. It actually should have been called Terrytown because most of the breeds at Mitchell were small terriers. You can see how that kind of breeding already made them suited to the ducks and crawl spaces of an urban battleground. Remember how bad they were? A lot of LRP missions were aborted in the beginning before we deployed escort dogs. I wouldn't have let her anywhere near them if I hadn't gone through basic with their handlers. Oh yeah, no, they never bit. That would have been fatal. You'd see a lot of dead K's in the beginning of the war just lying there, no wounds, and you knew they bitten infected flesh. The bigger K's could always hit between the shoulder blades or the small of the back, just knock them on their faces. By the time Zach got back up, you bought yourself 5, maybe 10, 15 seconds. Putting a wounded soldier out of his misery was a waste, but turning them into frag mutts, now that they consider. How fucking desperate do you have to be? But you better fucking believe there were some charges. That's what made us our own breed. That ability to bond so strongly with something that's not even our own species. The very thing that made so many of my friends take the bullets way out was what made us one of the most successful outfits in the whole fucking U.S. military. Behind them was this little mutt. I must have hit one of them with my bat. They found it cracked over his shoulder. One of the guys I attacked was holding his arm. The other one just lying there bleeding. He's not our friend, the one with the broken arm. Yeah, he's fucking crazy. I could barely take care of myself. The huts are grouped together behind a wall cut from the surrounding trees. The biting cold, lengthened and strengthened by the planet's darkened skies, gave us the time we needed to prepare our homeland for liberation. Those rounds were older than us. Some of them had been sitting in crates, open to the elements, since before Stalin breathed his last. Our battles were sloppy and brutal. It became the reason we stopped going into the cities and started walling them up during winter. There were always too many zombies, too many misfires, and always too many bitten boys. The decimations had given our armed forces the strength and discipline to do anything we asked of them. Anything but that. We began to see a noticeable degradation among our field commanders. The 3rd platoon leader chose a more passive method, what we began to call suicide by combat. We knew he couldn't have been taken. I could not blame the man. I still cannot. When the dead began to rise, he not only prevented his company from revolting, but led them all on foot, carrying both supplies and wounded from Kurta in the Silent Mountains all the way to Manaskin on the Caspian Sea. It wasn't long before they began to kill themselves in groups. All those who'd been bitten in the battle gathering at the field hospital to synchronize the moment when they would all pull the trigger. It was right after the Battle of Kostroma, just a few weeks before the official assault on Moscow. He wasn't bitten. That would have been merciful. The zombie had had its arms ripped off by the treads of a Su-152 self-propelled gun. They stabbed right through the boy's tunic. Their whole hands would have just grabbed him. Something was stirring within me, a tense, tingling sensation that began to work its way up through my heart and lungs. I began to feel my whole body tremble as the soldiers all placed the muzzles of the weapons underneath their chins. The others stared dumbfounded at the bullet hole in his forehead, then up to the smoking pistol in my hand. Suicide was a sin, and we, his servants, those who had chosen to be his shepherds upon the earth, were the only ones who should bear the cross of releasing trapped souls from affected bodies. What later became known as the Act of Final Purification was only the first step of religious fervor that would surpass even the Iranian Revolution of the 1980s. The old priest nods solemnly, pats the boy on the shoulder, then turns to me. As the mothership lowers us into the choppy Pacific, I detect a trace of surfer dude bleeding through Choi's otherwise not neutral accent. They say there are still somewhere between 20 and 30 million of them still washing up on beaches or getting snagged in fishermen's nets. The water before my observation dome frosts white for a second, then gives way to light blue as we submerge. You're not going to ask me about scuba gear or titanium shark suits, are you? Because that crap got nothing to do with my water. But the military did use those methods. It all kind of fell by the wayside when, do you really care about all this? Well, that sort of technology fell by the wayside when scuba was invented. You've got to spend days, sometimes weeks, in a decompression chamber, and if, for some reason, you have to shoot up to the surface, you get the bends, gas bubbles in the blood, in the brain, and we're not even talking about long-term health hazards like bone necrosis soaking your body with shit nature never intended to be there. That's what an AS does. Its depth and duration only limited by armor and life support. They've got 10 times the maneuverability, the speed, the ability, but they're strictly shallow water at best. And if for some reason a couple of those fuckers get a hold of you, sometimes, especially in the beginning, but it never happened to us. No matter which way Zach turned your arms, even if you managed to get a solid grip, which is hard considering how smooth and round everything is, it was physically impossible to break off a limb. If for some reason you need to jet up to the surface, just jettison your ballast or your thruster pack, if you had one. All suits are positively buoyant. They pop right up like a cork. Some of the older ones dated back to the 70s, the Jims and Sams. I knew one guy from the British Special Boat Service. We had 3 basic U.S. naval models, the Hart Suit 1200, the 2000, and the Mark 1 exosuit. That was my baby, the XO. To be able to operate above your enemy, even without a power sled or thruster packs, that more than made up for the fact that you couldn't scratch your itches. The hard suits were big enough to allow your arms to be pulled into the central cavity to allow you to operate secondary equipment. The hard suits were full service suits. XOs were the bargain basement. Both worked as hand-to-hand weapons, just grab a G's head and squeeze, but they made it impossible to fire a gun. About a year in, we got a much more efficient model, the M11, actually invented by the same guy who invented both the hard suit and XO. They kept telling us that between our claws and pre-existing construction tools, we have more than enough to handle Zach. The bottom turns up, your visibility is shot like fighting inside a glass of milk. Because the one fundamental flaw of an AS is complete tactile blackout. That night at Troll, our helmet lights only made the problem worse by throwing up a glare that was only broken by an undead hand or face. That was the only time I was ever spooked. Not scared, you understand, just spooked. Swinging in this liquid chalk and suddenly a rotting face is jammed against my face bowl. The civilian oil workers, they wouldn't go back to work, even under threat of reprisals, until we, their escorts, were better armed. You're in this strike suit, working in near pitch black, eyes stinging from the light of the welding torch, body numb from the cold or else burning from the hot water pumped through the system. Later, we expanded to beachhead sanitation and harbor cleaning. What we learned during Bermuda, our first amphibious landing, was that the beachhead was coming under constant attack by G's walking out of the surf. 2 weeks before the landings took place, a ship would anchor several miles offshore and start banging away with their active sonar. That was to draw Zach away from the beach. The brass told us that was an acceptable risk. I think they didn't have anything better. That's why it was an ads op too. Risky for mesh drivers. You knew that masses were gathering under that pinging ship and that once they were silent, you'd be the brightest target out there. It actually turned out to be the closest thing we ever had to a cakewalk. The attack frequency was the lowest by far, and when the nets were up, they had an almost perfect success rate. After the first 3 landings, they went back to using mesh divers. I know grunts like to bitch about fighting to clear a city, but imagine a city underwater. A city of sunken ships and cars and planes and every kind of debris imaginable. I am surprised how quickly we reached the bottom. I see the stumps of wire coal broken and trampled by the living dead. These G's should have gone way before the ones on land. Must be from the Indian Ocean, Iranian or Paki, or maybe that Chicom attack boat that went down off Manny. There's been a lot of controversy over the use of ROVs for combat. Most of us are still involved because we have to be, because they still haven't come up with a collection of chips and bits to replace us. All those ignorant peacocks who beat their chests and brag about mountain warfare or jungle warfare or urban warfare. Cities. Oh, how they love to brag about cities. But the truth, the logical, practical reason for keeping Paris free from American-style monoliths is that the earth beneath their feet is simply too tunneled to support it. There are Roman tombs, quarries that supply limestone for much of the city, even World War II bunkers used by the resistance. And yes, there was a resistance. Roughly 6 million bodies were buried there, taken from the pre-revolution cemeteries, where corpses just tossed in like rubbish. It was even functional in places where interlocking bones held back mounds of loose remains behind them. The skulls always seem to be laughing at me. I don't think I can blame the civilians who tried to survive in that subterranean world. They didn't have the civilian survival manual back then. They didn't have radio-free Earth. 250,000 in all. That's what the bone counters have determined. 250,000 refugees. Maybe if they had been organized, taught to bring food and tools, even had enough sense to seal the interests behind them and make damn sure those coming in weren't infected. Become lost, and you had to be careful. If you missed, if the ball struck the stone, if the stone was dry, if you got a spark, entire tunnels would catch. Explosions that buried men alive, or fireballs that melted their mass right to their faces. He rises from the table to show me something on his mantelpiece. It didn't have to be that way. The Nazis had built it to house mental patients, so the legend goes, letting them starve to death behind the concrete walls. During our war, it had been an infirmary for the recently bitten. Later, as more began to reanimate and the survivors' humanity faded like their electric lamps, they began throwing the infected and who knows who else into that undead vault. An advanced team broke through without realizing what was on the other side. They could have withdrawn, blown the tunnel, sealed them in again. His voice was the last thing we heard before the radio went silent. The grand strategy was to advance as one across the Great Plains, across the Midwest, then break off at the Appalachians. The winds sweeping north and south, shoot for Maine and Florida, then grind across this coast and link up with AG Center as they slogged it over the mountains. Doctrine was to advance as 2 solid lines, one behind the other, stretching from Canada to Axland. They'd be crawling on their bellies toward you, or just thrashing face down in the mud. You'd halt a section, a platoon, maybe even a company, depending on how many you encountered, just enough to take them down and sanitize the battlefield. I saw a movie once, this BBC documentary about how, because the UK was so foggy, the British Army would never stop. That was the start of the UN multinational force, but I was discharged long before those days. She was in real estate before the war and explained that the hottest properties were always the land between 2 existing cities. They do their best to dart any Quizlings we came across, tie them down, ship them to rehabilitation clinics, back when we thought we could rehabilitation them. A lot of HRs got pretty badly smashed up if you had to be tagged and bagged. The brass had to step in and assign a squad of grunts for escort. I guess history sort of backed them up now, seeing all those people that they managed to rehabilitate, all the ones we just would have shot on sight. Maybe they were mountain lions. Some sure looked like them, or maybe just a spawn of house cats that had to be super badass just to make it. I hear it's because rats were like the new cow, fast and smart enough to get away from Zach, living on corpse, breeding by the millions in trees and ruins. They'd gotten pretty badass themselves. So anything tough enough to hunt them has to be a whole lot better. I was stepping through the window of a Starbucks, and suddenly three of them leaped at me from behind the counter. Between the bite-proof BDUs and body armor we started wearing, the vest, the helmet. No, the body armor was for protection against some of the regular people we found. The ones we called limos, those were the ones who were a little too used to being king. After Chicago, the brass knew we were now in a full multi-threat environment. I know a lot of guys from AG South like to bitch about how they always had it tougher on their end. Because for us, winter took care of Zach's whole threat level. Yeah, we had it real easy up to our ass in gray snow, knowing that for every 5 Zach sickles you crack, there'd be at least as many up and at them at first off. I mean, even today, with all the sweeps and civilian volunteer groups, springs like winter used to be, nature letting us know the good life's over for now. You want to sleep, nothing more, not eat or bathe or even fuck. There was also a little bit of weenie wagging. Every grunt wants to be the one riding over the hill. No one likes to be the one in the fort. They were actually living better than us. Fresh chow, hot showers, soft beds. For what they went through, bragging rights was the least we could get. They'd be cheering and shouting. It was like what you think war was supposed to be. Those old black and whites of G's marching into Paris or wherever. I got more. Well, if there's a bunch of little dudes between here and the hero city that happen to look like me, but there were exceptions. Maybe not all the time, but there'd be this one person, this angry face in the crowd screaming shit at you. The brass had special units for rebs. There's been a lot of stories about questionable survival methods used by certain isolated zones. This conversation we're having now, this question of what if, I didn't have time for that back then. Sickness was a big one. The kinds of disease that were supposed to be gone, like in the dark ages or something. Yeah, we took our pills, had our shots, ate well, and had regular checkups, but there was just so much shit everywhere in the dirt, the water, and the rain, the air we breathed. The brass really freaked on that one. Quarantined the whole battalion for 2 weeks. Made a lot of sense back then. Just see mile after mile, wait for Zach to blow himself up. That's what they're designed for, not to kill people, but to wound them so the army would spend valuable resources keeping them alive. And then send them home in a wheelchair to mom and pa civilian can be reminded every time they see him that maybe supporting this war isn't such a good idea. All conventional mines do is create a bunch of crippled gals that, if anything, just makes your job that much harder because you want them upright and easy to spot, not crawling around the weeds waiting to be stepped on like landmines themselves. They were these hardcore LA bangers who were deported back to El Salvador because they were technically illegal. My buddy was plopped there right before the war. And then you catch a 12 gauge in the face, probably set by a limo who'd stopped breathing years before. Whole roofs collapsed, no warning. Whole structures just tumbling down. I don't know how many pounds of snow and ice brought that roof down. Crazy bastard was sliced from his neck to the bottom of his toes. I knew this one guy, massive rhodosaurus. He'd been a professional wrestler before the war. Another guy, nothing special about him, late 40s, balding, bit of a punch, as much as anyone could have back then. The kind of face you'd see in a pre-war heartburn commercial. One night in Portland, Maine, we were in Giving Oaks Park, polishing piles of bleach bones that had been there since the panic. 2 grunts pick up these scars and start doing a skit. The one from Free to Be, You and Me, the 2 babies. I only recognized it because my big brother had the record. It was a little before my time. Well, what do you think I am? A loaf of bread? Turtles were like unicorns back then. You hardly saw them anymore. By the time we reached Yonkers, I was the last of the old gang from Pope. When we boarded the barges on the banks of Hudson, we managed to lock eyes. Burlington, Vermont. The war in Europe was over, and to the British people, there was this feeling that they had suffered enough. But Churchill kept pushing to help the United States against Japan, saying the fight wasn't finished until it was finished everywhere. We still had to help out our allies and clear whole parts of the world that were entirely ruled by the dead. I know I caught a lot of flack for going UN instead of making an all-American crusade, and to be totally honest, I really couldn't give a damn. Gonna be tough, and we still have attacks right here at home as well. Every spring or every so often near a lake or beach, the numbers are declining, thing happens, but it doesn't mean people should let down their guard. I wish I could have been there the day we formally reabsorbed the Belarus back into the empire. They say it will be the Ukraine soon, and after that, who knows? By the time I've exhausted my usefulness, I will have already outlived the average woman. The war drove us back to our roots, made us remember what it means to be Russian. Bridgetown, Barbados, West Indies Federation. Most of the patrons have either left by their own power or have been carried out by the police. The last of the night, staff cleaned the broken chairs, broken glass, and pools of blood off the floor. I tried to fit in, settle down, make some friends, get a job, and do my part to help put America back together. Or hard blow to the occipital. Drop that chick pretty fast. Jesus, who the hell am I to call anybody else that? When I heard him speak at a rally, I must have thought of at least 50 ways to bring him down. Paul Winiwa got it from a Maori brother who used to play for the All Blacks before the war. But that's the other perk of being a soldier of fortune. It's got to be hard, dangerous, and the more G's you got to take on, the better. T-Shawn signals to the waiter, then flips a few silver round on the table. That's why I save most of my fees instead of giving back to the host country or blowing it on who knows what. I try not to be angry, bitter at the unfairness of it all. He said that Americans are the only people he's ever met who just can't accept that bad things can happen to good people. No, I try not to be bitter. Mrs. Miller and I stand on the back deck above the children playing in the central courtyard. You can blame the politicians, the businessmen, the generals, the machine, but really, if you're looking to blame someone, blame me. I can see why it took so long for China to finally embrace it, and why Russia just said fuck it and went back to whatever they call their system now. Nice to be able to say, hey, don't look at me. It's not my fault. My grandparents suffered through depression, World War II, then came home to build the greatest middle class in human history. Lord knows they weren't perfect, but they sure came closest to the American dream. Then my parents' generation came along and fucked it all up. The baby boomers, the me generation. At least we're cleaning up our own mess. And maybe that's the best epitaph to hope for. Kwang Jinshu does his final house call for the day. A little boy with some kind of respiratory illness. They don't know to be afraid, and that is the greatest gift, the only gift we can leave to them. I don't really believe in the afterlife, the old revolutionary to the end. But if there is, I can imagine my old comrade Jew laughing down at me when I say, with all honesty, that everything's going to be all right. Joe Muhammad has just finished his latest masterpiece, a 13-inch statuette of a man in mid-shuffle, wearing a torn baby Jordan, staring ahead with lifeless eyes. I know I come off as a little too optimistic because I'm sure that as soon as things really get back to normal, once our kids or grandkids grow up in a peaceful and comfortable world, they'll probably go right back to being as selfish and narrow-minded and generally shitty to one another as we were. But then again, can what we all went through really just go away? I'd like to believe that. Last week, we had a bachelor party for one of the young boys on the block. We borrowed the only working DVD player and a few pre-war skin flicks. There was one scene where Leslie Canyon was getting reamed by three guys on the hood of this pearl gray BMW Z4 convertible. And all I could think was, wow, they sure don't make cars like that anymore. The Cuban peso is still king, and so many of our more affluent citizens still have their bank accounts in Havana. We have to nail the bastards who are preventing confidence from returning to the American economy. Not just the penny auntie looters, but the big fish as well, the sleaze bags who's trying to buy up homes before the virus can reclaim them, or lobbying to deregulate food and other essential survival commodities. And the bastard Breckinridge Scott. Yes, the Phalanx King, still hiding like a rat in his Antarctic fortress or scumditude. Every year, the summer is a little longer, the sky is a little bluer. Their main duty will be to teach Japanese civilians how to protect themselves from the living dead. His generation wanted to rule the world, and mine was content to let the world, and by the world, I mean your country, rule us. There has to be a better way, a middle path where we take responsibility for our own protection, but not so much that it inspires anxiety and hatred among our fellow nations. We finish our lunch as Virgin aggressively snatches the bill from my hand. It means tight ass, but the official definition is German Jew. I've heard it said that the Holocaust has no survivors, that even those who managed to remain technically alive were so irreparably damaged that their spirit, their soul, the person that they were supposed to be was gone forever. I'd like to think that's not true, but if it is, then no one on earth survived this war. Aboard USS Tracy Bowden. Hell of a loss. And you don't have to be some patchouli, stinking crunchhead to appreciate it. I've heard of random sightings of a few belugas and narwhals that survived under the Arctic ice, but there probably aren't enough for a sustainable gene pool. I wouldn't be too optimistic about their odds. The sun dips below the horizon. Whatever, bro. Tell it to the whales. Todd Wainio walks me to the train, savoring the 100% tobacco Cuban cigarettes I've bought him as a parting gift. The accent and some of the terms were all different, but the chorus. And that's the book, World War Z by Max Brooks. So I'm thinking I'll close with a song. Just a simple song. Something simple, something that I like, that I can listen to over and over again, or look at the video over and over again for whatever reason. Like that's how much I think is interesting. And whereas this particular song, it's not one that it's not really, there's just a scene in the video that I could rewind and rewind and rewind. It's the scene where Katy Perry has little Catherine to the right of her, and there's a shot of this guy on a horse, and then the next shot is the guy off the horse in front of Katy Perry and little Catherine. And then Katy Perry reaches back and punches the guy left jaw with her fist. So if you know the video, then you know that the song is Wide Open. So because I like that little scene, I'm gonna do Wide Awake. And the song that I might end it with Lord Yellow Flicker Beat, because that's a video that I like too. I can watch that one over and over again, and I'll explain when we get to it. I'm wide awake. I'm wide awake. Yeah, I was in the dark with an open heart, How did I read the stars so wrong? And now it's good to me that everything you see ain't always what it seems. Yeah, I was dreaming for so long. I wish I knew then what I know now. Wouldn't dive in Wouldn't bow down, gravity hurts. You made it so sweet till I woke up on the concrete, falling from cloud nine, crashing from the high. I'm letting go tonight. Yeah, I'm falling from cloud nine. I'm wide awake, not losing any sleep. I picked up every piece and landed on my feet. I'm wide awake, need nothing to complete myself. No. Yeah, I'm born again, out of the lion's den. I don't have to pretend, and it's too late. The story's over now, the end. I wish I knew then what I know now. Wouldn't dive in, wouldn't bow down. Gravity hurts, made it so sweet. Till I woke up on the concrete, falling from cloud nine. I'm crashing from the high. I'm letting go tonight. I'm falling from cloud nine. Thunder rumbling, castles crumbling. I am trying to hold on. God knows that I tried seeing the bright side. I'm not blind anymore. I'm wide awake. I'm wide awake. Yeah, I'm falling from cloud nine, crashing from the high. You know I'm letting go tonight. I'm falling from cloud nine. I'm wide awake. 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 So I started dancing when I was 3, and I danced for what I consider to be many years, and then picked back up in my 20s. Um, but this song, it's not. I like how she dances in it. I can just watch it over and over again just to see her dancing in it. I'm a prince. Oops. Ooh, just to see her dancing it. I'm a princess cut from marble, smoother than a stone. And the scars that mark my body, they're silver and gold. My blood is a flood of rubies, precious stones. It keeps my veins hot. The fire's found a home in me. I move through sound. I'm quiet like a fight. And my necklace is of rope. I tie it and untie. And now people talk to me, but nothing ever never hits home. People talk to me and all the voices just burn holes. I'm done with it. Ooh, this is the start of how it all is. They used to shout my name, now they whisper it. I'm speeding up, and this is the red, orange, yellow flicker beat, sparking up my heart. We're at the start, the colors disappear. I never watch the stars, there's so much down here. So I just try to keep up with the red, orange, yellow flicker beat, sparking up my heart. I dream all year, but they're not the sweet kind. And the shivers move down my shoulder blades in double time. And now people talk to me, I'm slipping out of reach now. People talk to me and all the faces blur, but I got my fingers linked together and I made a little prison and I'm locking up everyone who ever laid a finger on me. I'm done with it. Ooh, this is the start of how it all is. They used to shout my name, now they whisper it. I'm speeding up, and this is the red, orange, yellow flicker beat, sparking up my heart. We're at the start, the colors disappear. I never watch the stars, there's so much down here. So I just try to keep up the red, orange, yellow flicker beat, sparking up my heart. Ooh. And this is the red, orange, yellow flicker beat, sparking up my heart. Ooh. Ooh. And this is the red, orange, yellow flicker beat, 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 beat. Ooh. Do you want me to do that again? Really? You want to get this one? So again, this artist is Lorde, and the song is Yellow Flicker Beat, and it's from the Hunger Games, and that's Lorde. Lorde. So I'm putting a little of, you may not, I may not know, but because we are a show, I'm going to say it like this. I'm going to position it like this. Because we are a show with views for security and law, we're familiar with Security Representative Roman Hunger of the United Nations. And what I don't know is if after Ban Ki-moon left, if he's still there, because I haven't looked it up, or if he left when Ban Ki-moon left. But for you people going above and beyond the call of duty, maybe you'll research that. You know, Roman Hunger, the Hunger Games. I'm a princess cut from marble, smoother than a storm. And the scars that mark my body, they're silver and gold. My blood is a flood of rubies, precious stones. It keeps my veins hot. The fire's found a home in me. I move through town. I'm quiet like a fight. And my necklace is a rope. I tie it and untie. And now people talk to me, but nothing ever hits home. People talk to me and all the voices just burn holes. I'm done with it. Ooh, this is the start of how it all ends. They used to shout my name, now they whisper it. I'm speeding up. And this is the red, orange, yellow flicker beat sparking at my heart. We're at the start. Disappear. I never watch the stars. There's so much down here. So I just try to keep up with the red, orange, yellow flicker beat sparking at my heart. I dream all year, but they're not the sweet kind. And the shivers move down my shoulder, blazing double time. And now people talk to me. I'm slipping out of reach now. People talk to me and all their faces blur, but I got my fingers laced together and I made a little prison and I'm locking up everyone who ever laid a finger on me. I'm done with it. Ooh, this is the start of how it all ends. They used to shout my name, now they whisper it. I'm speeding up, and this is the red, orange, yellow flicker beat sparking up my heart. We're at the start, the colors disappear. I never watch the stars, there's so much down here. So I just try to keep up with the red, orange, yellow flicker beat sparking up my heart. Ooh. And this is the red, orange, yellow flicker beat sparking up my heart. And this is the red, orange, yellow flicker beat, 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 beat. So this has been the Late Late Show with BT. Bye.